Imagine a world where Harry Potter never slept in a cupboard under the stairs. A world where the letter from Hogwarts wasn't a shocking revelation, but an expected milestone. A world where the Dursleys didn't just tolerate Harry Potter, but actually loved him. Today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating alternate timelines in the Harry Potter universe. What if the Dursleys were kind? How would this single change ripple through the entire story, reshaping not just Harry's childhood, but the entire war against Voldemort? Stick around, because this gets deep and the implications are absolutely mind-blowing. Let's start at the very beginning. November 1st, 1981. Albus Dumbledore places a baby on a doorstep in Little Whinging with nothing but a letter explaining that his parents have been murdered. In the original timeline, this is where Petunia Dursley's jealousy and resentment solidified into something cruel. But what if, in this moment, something different happened? What if Petunia, holding that letter in her trembling hands, felt something break inside her? Her sister, her only sister, despite all their differences, despite the magic that had driven a wedge between them, was dead. Gone forever. And here was Lily's son, an orphan, just like their own parents had left them orphans years before. Picture this scene differently. Petunia picks up the baby, and instead of disgust, she feels the weight of her sister's sacrifice. She sees Lily's eyes looking back at her, those same green eyes that used to sparkle when they were children playing in the park, before magic, before Hogwarts, before everything went wrong between them. Vernon comes out, probably angry, probably ready to protest, but Petunia is crying. Not tears of frustration or fear, but genuine grief. She tells Vernon that they're all Harry has now, that Lily died protecting him, that he's family. And Vernon, seeing his wife truly heartbroken for perhaps the first time in their marriage, softens. Not completely, not immediately, but enough, so Harry doesn't go into the cupboard under the stairs. Instead, they clear out the spare bedroom, the one they'd been using for storage in Vernon's old golf clubs. It's small, sure, but it's a real bedroom with a real bed and a window that lets in actual sunlight. Dudley throws a tantrum at first because he wanted that room for his extra toys, but Petunia, in a rare moment of backbone, tells him no. Harry is family now. They're brothers, and brothers share. This is the first domino falling in a completely different direction. Harry grows up knowing he's different, but not in a shameful way. When strange things happen, when he accidentally makes the glass vanish at the zoo or ends up on the school roof, the Dursleys are confused, maybe a little frightened, but they don't punish him for it. Petunia, who had spent years trying to forget about magic, now finds herself telling Harry stories about his mother. Carefully at first, reluctantly, but as she sees his face light up at mentions of Lily, she tells him more. She tells him about how Lily could make flowers bloom with a touch when she was little, how she got a letter from a magical school when she was 11, how she was brilliant and kind and brave. Harry learns early that he's a wizard. There's no shocking revelation. The Hogwarts letter, when it arrives in the summer before his 11th birthday, is expected. The Dursleys don't flee to a hut on a rock in the ocean. Instead, they sit Harry down at the kitchen table and read the letter together. Vernon harumphs and makes jokes about waving sticks around, but there's no real venom in it. Petunia's hands shake slightly as she looks at the Hogwarts crest, but she tells Harry that his mother loved that school, that she'll help him get his supplies, that they'll figure this out together. Diagon Alley is a revelation. Without Hagrid as a guide, they have to figure things out themselves. Petunia, drawing on old memories, leads them to the leaky cauldron. She's nervous, clearly out of her element, but she's doing this for Harry, for Lily. The magical world is shocked to see Harry Potter with what are clearly Muggle relatives who aren't dragging him by the collar. People stare, whisper, but the Dursleys stand protectively around Harry. Vernon, despite his discomfort with magic, bristles when people point and gawk at his nephew. Say what you will about Vernon Dursley, but in this timeline, Harry is his boy, and nobody makes his boy uncomfortable. They meet the Weasleys in Flourish and Blots. Molly Weasley, warm and maternal, immediately clocks the situation. She sees this nervous Muggle family trying their best to help a young wizard, and her heart melts. She helps them navigate the shopping, explains what everything is for, and when she learns Harry will need to get to King's Cross on September 1st, she insists they arrive together. She gives Petunia her telephone number, and for the first time since Lily died, Petunia has a connection to the magical world that doesn't hurt. The two women bond over the challenges of raising children, magical or otherwise. and Petunia finds herself feeling something she thought she'd never feel again, a sense of belonging to both worlds. Dudley, in this timeline, is a different child too. Without Harry as a convenient target for cruelty, his worst impulses are checked early. He's still spoiled, still gets more Christmas presents than any child reasonably needs, but he grows up with a brother, not a punching bag. By the time they're 10, Harry and Dudley have developed the kind of complicated sibling relationship that's real. They fight, sure, but they also play together. Dudley defends Harry from bullies at their primary school, even though he doesn't fully understand why some kids call Harry weird. In return, Harry helps Dudley with his homework and teaches him card games on rainy afternoons. When September first arrives, the platform is chaos, but Harry isn't anxious. He's excited. Vernon takes the day off work, something he never does, to see Harry off. They push the trolley toward the barrier between platforms 9 and 10, and Molly Weasley waves them over. She shows them the trick of walking through the barrier, and suddenly they're standing on platform 9 3/4, and it's real. The Hogwarts Express is gleaming red in the morning light, and Harry's entire future is waiting. Petunia hugs Harry tightly, and for a moment she's hugging Lily too, sending her off to Hogwarts all those years ago. She tells him to be safe, to write often, to remember everything so he can tell her about it. She tells him his mother would be so proud. Vernon clears his throat gruffly and shakes Harry's hand like he's a proper young man, then ruins the moment by pulling him into an awkward hug. Even Dudley seems sad to see him go, though he'd never admit it. They promise to write, to send each other candy, and to cause trouble together during the Christmas holidays. Harry boards the train with confidence instead of trepidation. He still meets Ron Weasley in a compartment, but the dynamic is different. Harry isn't this lost, abused child looking for his first real friend. He's a normal kid starting a magical adventure. Ron is still funny, still loyal, but their bond forms differently. It's less intense, less codependent. When Hermione Granger shows up looking for Trevor the Toad, Harry is polite but not desperate for connection. He still thinks she's a bit bossy, but he recognizes her intelligence and passion. The Sorting Hat is placed on Harry's head, and here's where things get really interesting. The hat still senses his qualities, still notes that he could do well in Slytherin, but there's a crucial difference. This Harry hasn't spent 10 years learning that he needs to be cunning to survive, that he needs to hide who he is to avoid punishment. He hasn't developed the defensive mechanisms that made him resilient, but also wounded. The hat is intrigued by this alternative Harry Potter, one who grew up loved and secure. The hat still suggests Slytherin, noting his resourcefulness and ambition to prove himself. But when Harry thinks not Slytherin, it's different. It's not born from fear of being like Voldemort or trauma associating Slytherin with dark wizards. Instead, it's a simple preference. He'd like to be with Ron, who seems like good fun. He'd like to be in the house his mother loved. The hat, respecting his choice, calls out Gryffindor, and Harry joins the red and gold table to thunderous applause. His first year at Hogwarts unfolds with key differences. Harry is still famous, still the boy who lived, but he handles the attention differently. He's uncomfortable with it, sure, but he's not as desperate to escape notice. He writes home regularly, sending long letters to Petunia describing everything. His classes, his friends, the moving staircases, the ghosts, the food. Petunia saves every letter in a box, and sometimes Vernon catches her crying while reading them, though she always claims it's just dust. Dudley, believe it or not, writes too. His letters are shorter, full of complaints about homework and bragging about his school's football team, but he always asks about the magical stuff. Is it true that the pictures move? Did Harry really see a three-headed dog? Does he think magic could help Dudley lose weight because the other kids have started calling him names and it hurts? Harry's return letters to Dudley are kind, encouraging him to ignore the bullies like they always did together, and promising to show him some magic tricks during the holidays. The troll incident on Halloween still happens, but Harry's motivations are slightly different. He's not rushing to save Hermione because she's friendless like he once was. Instead, he goes because it's the right thing to do, because someone needs help. Ron goes with him because they're mates, not because of some deeper trauma bond. They still become friends with Hermione afterward, still form a trio of sorts, but it's more casual. They're friends, good friends even, but not the intensely loyal ride-or-die trio of the original timeline. Not yet, anyway. The mystery of the Philosopher's Stone still captures Harry's attention because he's still brave and curious and clever. But here's a key difference. When things get dangerous, when they're planning to go after Snape, who they think is trying to steal the stone, Harry does something the original Harry would never have thought to do. He writes home. He tells Petunia that he thinks something bad is happening at the school, that a teacher might be trying to steal a powerful magical object, and that the other teachers don't seem to believe them. Petunia, in a panic, calls Molly Weasley. Molly, in turn, contacts Dumbledore directly through official channels. She's not one to mince words, and she demands to know if the school is safe for their children. Dumbledore, surprised by this intervention, is forced to take the students' concerns more seriously. He investigates more thoroughly, discovers Quirrell's deception earlier, and the confrontation happens differently. Harry is still involved, still brave, but he has adult backup sooner. The face-off with Quirrell and Voldemort still happens, but Harry isn't alone as long. The protection in his blood still works, still burns Quirrell on contact, and Voldemort still flees, defeated but not destroyed. But Harry doesn't nearly die in the process. He's injured, scared, traumatized by coming face to face with the wizard who murdered his parents, but he survives with less physical damage. More importantly, he's surrounded by support immediately. Dumbledore is there faster. The teachers rally around him. And when Petunia and Vernon are notified, they apparate. No, wait, they can't do that. They drive through the night, breaking every speed limit to get to Hogwarts. The reunion in the hospital wing is emotional. Petunia holds Harry and rocks him like he's still a baby, crying into his hair. Vernon stands guard at the door like he's personally going to fight off any dark wizard who tries to get through. Dudley, who they brought along because he refused to stay home, sits on the end of Harry's bed and tries to act tough, but his eyes are red. The Weasleys are there too, and the two families bond over their shared relief that Harry is safe. This is the moment that cements everything. Harry realizes that he has something Voldemort never understood, something more powerful than dark magic. He has a family who loves him, who drove through the night because he was hurt, who would do anything to keep him safe. And he has friends, real friends, who face danger alongside him. This realization will shape everything that comes after. Summer at Privet Drive is wonderful. Harry comes home to a banner Dudley made saying, "Welcome home, Wizard Boy," which is both embarrassing and endearing. The neighbors are confused by the owl that keeps delivering post, but the Dursleys handle it with surprising grace. Vernon even builds a perch in the garage for Hedwig, though he complains the entire time about the bird droppings. Harry tells them everything that happened, sparing no detail, and they listen with a mixture of horror, pride, and protectiveness. Petunia insists on meeting Albus Dumbledore. She's furious that Harry was put in danger, that a teacher was possessed by Voldemort right under everyone's noses. She wants assurances that the school is safe. When Dumbledore arrives at Privet Drive, it's one of the more surreal meetings in wizarding history. Vernon serves tea, badly, and hovers protectively. Petunia demands answers. Dumbledore, to his credit, is honest. He explains the blood protection that keeps Harry safe while he can call Privet Drive home, explains why he left Harry with them, and apologizes for the danger at Hogwarts. Petunia, after a long silence, says something that surprises everyone, including herself. She tells Dumbledore that she understands difficult choices, that she knows he's trying to keep Harry safe. But she makes it clear that Harry is her nephew, her responsibility, and if anything happens to him at that school, she will find a way to hold Dumbledore accountable, magic or no magic. Dumbledore looks at this fierce Muggle woman defending a wizard child and sees so much of Lily that it hurts. He nods, accepts her terms, and promises to do better. The Chamber of Secrets year brings new challenges. Dobby still shows up to warn Harry, but when he starts destroying the house, Vernon doesn't explode with fury. Instead, he captures the house elf under a laundry basket, and they all sit down to talk. Dobby is confused by these Muggles who aren't afraid of him, who want to understand why he's trying to keep Harry from school. The Dursleys take the warning seriously. They discuss whether Harry should return to Hogwarts, but ultimately, Harry makes the choice. He wants to go back. His friends are there. His education is there. His mother's legacy is there. When Ron and the twins arrive in the flying car to rescue Harry, they find him having breakfast with his family, not locked in his room. It's awkward. Fred and George are thoroughly confused. Ron keeps looking around for the bars on the windows. Harry explains, somewhat embarrassed, that he's fine, that his family was just worried about the warning they received. The twins, adaptable as always, roll with it, and they all end up having a rather nice visit before Harry packs his trunk. The attacks at Hogwarts affect Harry differently in this timeline. He's still hearing the voice in the walls, still worried about the students being petrified, but he's not paralyzed by fear that he might be the heir of Slytherin. He knows who he is. He has a stable sense of self. When students start whispering that he might be the one attacking classmates, it hurts, but it doesn't shake his foundation. He writes home about it, and Petunia sends him a care package with his favorite sweets, and a note reminding him that he's a good person, that she knows him, and that gossip says more about the gossipers than the target. The revelation about Tom Riddle's diary and Ginny's possession still happens. The climactic scene in the Chamber of Secrets still plays out with the basilisk and the phoenix and the sword of Gryffindor. But again, Harry fights with a different energy. He's not fighting to prove he deserves to exist. He's fighting to save Ginny, to protect his school, because it's right. When he defeats the basilisk and destroys the diary, he's terrified and brave in equal measure, but not suicidal in his courage. The Dursleys' reaction to learning that Harry fought a 60-foot serpent in a hidden chamber beneath the school is about what you'd expect. Vernon nearly has a coronary. Petunia writes a strongly worded letter to Dumbledore that includes the phrase, "unacceptable danger to students," at least 15 times. Dudley thinks it's the coolest thing he's ever heard and begs Harry to describe the basilisk in detail at least 100 times. Third year brings Sirius Black's escape and the Dementor problem. The Dursleys, learning that a dangerous criminal who allegedly wants to kill Harry has escaped from wizard prison, go into full protective mode. Vernon suggests they go into hiding. Petunia researches magical protections obsessively. Dudley, now 13 and going through his own awkward phase, appoints himself Harry's bodyguard whenever they're in the Muggle world, which is both annoying and touching. The Dementor attack on the train affects Harry, but not quite as severely as in the original timeline. He still hears his mother's last moments, still feels the crushing despair, but he has happier memories to fight back with. Recent summers with the Dursleys, Christmas mornings that were actually joyful, Dudley teaching him to ride a bike when they were 8. These memories aren't as powerfully magical as defeating Voldemort, but they're real and warm and his. Remus Lupin becomes an important figure for Harry, a connection to his parents' past. But Harry doesn't latch onto him with quite the same desperate intensity. He's grateful for the connection, curious about his parents, but he's not searching for a father figure to replace what he never had. He already has Vernon, who, despite his flaws, has been there for him. The relationship with Lupin is meaningful but different, more about understanding his history than filling a void. The revelation about Sirius Black being innocent, being Harry's godfather, hits hard. The climactic scene at the Shrieking Shack unfolds similarly, with the truth about Peter Pettigrew coming out. But when Sirius offers Harry a home, tells him he can leave the Dursleys, Harry's response surprises everyone. He's touched by the offer, wants to know Sirius, but he can't just leave the Dursleys. They're his family. They raised him. He loves them. Sirius is taken aback. In his mind, Muggles who raise wizard children are either supportive like the Grangers or terrible like he assumed the Dursleys were. The idea that Harry actually wants to stay with them doesn't compute at first. It takes a long conversation, and eventually meeting the Dursleys himself after his name is cleared, for Sirius to understand. The meeting between Sirius Black and the Dursleys is tense at first. Vernon doesn't trust this wizard who was in prison, even if he was innocent. Sirius doesn't trust these Muggles who he assumed mistreated his godson, but Petunia breaks the ice by pulling out her box of letters from Harry. Years' worth of correspondence that she's saved and cherished. She shows Sirius how much she's tried to stay connected to Harry's world, how much she's tried to honor Lily's memory by loving her son. Sirius sees these Muggles through new eyes, sees how much they genuinely care for Harry, and something in him softens. He realizes that James and Lily would have wanted Harry to be loved, and against all odds, the Dursleys have done that. The Triwizard Tournament year is chaos from the start. When Harry's name comes out of the Goblet of Fire, the Dursleys' response is immediate and fierce. Vernon threatens to sue Hogwarts, which makes no sense legally but expresses his fury perfectly. Petunia demands an investigation into how this happened. Dudley offers to go to Hogwarts and punch whoever put Harry's name in the goblet, which is sweet but impractical. Harry has their support throughout the tournament, which changes his experience of it. He's still stressed, still facing deadly challenges, but he writes home after each task. Petunia sends howlers to the school governors demanding better safety measures. The Dursleys attend the final task as spectators, which is their right as Harry's family, and their presence in the stands gives Harry an extra boost of confidence. When Voldemort returns and Cedric dies, the trauma is immense. Harry returns clutching Cedric's body, and the world tilts on its axis. But this time, when everyone is in chaos, when some believe him and others don't, the Dursleys are a solid foundation. They believe him without question. They saw him leave happy and return broken. They hold him while he cries. They protect him from the press. They fight for him when the ministry tries to discredit him. The summer before 5th year is difficult but not isolating. Harry isn't cut off from information, isn't left to rot in Privet Drive with no news. The Order of the Phoenix still forms, but they communicate with Harry more openly, because Dumbledore recognizes that the Dursleys are allies, not obstacles. When Dementors attack in Little Whinging, Vernon Dursley does something remarkable. He can't see them, can't fight them, but he stands between them and Harry anyway, garden rake in hand, shouting at the cold. The ministry hearing for underage magic is a farce, but Harry arrives with a support system. Sirius is there, and so are the Dursleys, dressed in their best clothes, ready to testify that Harry was defending himself and his cousin. The sight of Muggles in the ministry, demanding justice for a wizard, causes quite a stir. Harry is cleared, but the message is sent to Fudge and Umbridge. Harry Potter is not alone. Dolores Umbridge's reign of terror at Hogwarts is just as awful in this timeline. She still makes Harry carve "I must not tell lies" into his hand. But when Harry writes home about it, when Petunia sees the scars in his handwriting, all hell breaks loose. Vernon contacts the Muggle authorities, which of course have no jurisdiction, but he also contacts every parent he can find. Petunia organizes the Muggle parents of Muggle-born students into a coalition. They storm Hogwarts in a way that no one anticipated. Dumbledore is forced to address the parent uprising. The Board of Governors is pressured by both magical and Muggle families. Umbridge's methods are exposed more quickly. She's still dangerous, still causes damage, but her time at Hogwarts is cut shorter. The DA still forms because students need to defend themselves, but it has more open support. When Harry teaches, when he helps his classmates learn to fight, he's more confident in his role because he's more confident in himself. The vision of Sirius being tortured at the Department of Mysteries still happens. Harry still falls for the trap because he loves his godfather and can't bear the thought of losing him. But there's a key difference. Before rushing off, he sends a letter home. Just a quick note to Hedwig with instructions to take it to Privet Drive if he doesn't return by morning. The letter explains where he's going and why. The battle at the Department of Mysteries unfolds with all its terror and chaos. Sirius still falls through the veil, and Harry's heart still breaks. But when the Order arrives, when Dumbledore comes, Harry isn't entirely alone in his grief. The Dursleys, receiving his letter and panicking, contacted the Order immediately. They couldn't come themselves, couldn't fight in a magical battle, but they made sure help was on the way. The aftermath of Sirius's death is devastating. Harry loses someone who understood his parents, who represented a connection to the family he never got to know. But he has the Dursleys to grieve with, and their solid present love helps him process the loss. Petunia shares more stories about Lily, about the sister she lost too early. Vernon, awkward with emotions, makes sure Harry knows he's not going anywhere. Dudley stays close, a silent, supportive presence. The prophecy revelation, learning that he's the one who must either kill Voldemort or be killed, is a crushing weight. But Harry doesn't face it alone. He tells the Dursleys everything, and they react with fury at Dumbledore for keeping this from them, with fear for Harry's safety, and with fierce determination to help however they can. This is their boy, and if a prophecy says he has to face a dark wizard, then they'll do everything in their power to prepare him. 6th year brings Dumbledore's private lessons and the hunt for Horcruxes. Harry learns about Tom Riddle's past, about the pieces of soul hidden in objects. The information is dark and disturbing, but Harry processes it better because he has people to talk to. He discusses the concept with Hermione, debates strategy with Ron, and even finds himself explaining it to the Dursleys in simplified terms during Christmas break. The hunt for the Horcrux in the cave happens as it did, with Harry and Dumbledore facing the Inferi and Dumbledore drinking the terrible potion. The attack on Hogwarts follows. Dumbledore's death breaks something in the magical world. Harry, watching his mentor fall, feels the weight of destiny crushing down. But even in this moment, even as Snape reveals himself as a traitor and everything goes wrong, Harry has something to fight for beyond revenge. He has people he loves who are counting on him to survive. The summer before the Horcrux hunt is spent in preparation. Harry, Ron, and Hermione plan their mission, but now they have more support. The Dursleys offer Privet Drive as a safe house, protected by ancient blood magic. Petunia researches everything she can about the objects in Muggle libraries, cross-referencing magical lore with historical artifacts. Vernon, practical as always, helps them plan supplies and escape routes. Dudley insists on learning basic self-defense to protect himself and his parents if Death Eaters come calling. When the Order moves the Dursleys to safety, when Harry says goodbye to them before the hunt begins, it's emotional. This isn't goodbye to people who barely tolerated him. This is goodbye to his family. Petunia holds his face in her hands and tells him to come back to them. Vernon shakes his hand firmly and tells him to be smart, be safe, and don't do anything too heroic. Dudley hugs him tightly and makes him promise to write when he can, even if it's just a word to let them know he's alive. The Horcrux hunt is brutal. Harry, Ron, and Hermione face starvation, danger, and despair. The locket Horcrux still amplifies their worst thoughts and fears. But Harry's worst fears are different. The locket shows him the Dursleys killed because of him, shows Petunia crying over his dead body, shows Dudley captured by Death Eaters. These visions are personal and painful, but they don't destroy him because he knows they're not real. He knows his family is safe, hidden and protected. When Ron leaves, when the tension and the locket become too much, Harry is still hurt and angry. But he has coping mechanisms from growing up in a stable environment. He works through his feelings instead of bottling them up. He and Hermione support each other differently, as true friends rather than with the romantic undertones of the original timeline. When Ron returns, the reconciliation is still needed, still meaningful, but it happens faster because Harry has learned forgiveness and communication from the Dursleys. The break-in at Gringotts, the retrieval of the Hufflepuff Cup, the final return to Hogwarts, all of these happen in rapid succession. The Battle of Hogwarts looms, the ultimate confrontation between good and evil. Students and teachers prepare to defend the school. The Order rallies. Families are evacuated. And then, in the chaos of preparation, something unexpected happens. Vernon, Petunia, and Dudley Dursley show up at Hogwarts. They've broken out of protective custody, driven through the night, and demanded entry to the castle. They can't do magic, can't fight Death Eaters directly, but they can help evacuate younger students, can provide first aid, can stand guard over the injured. The magical world is shocked to see Muggles in the battle, but the Dursleys are adamant. Harry is fighting, so they're fighting too. Harry tries to send them away, tries to keep them safe, but Petunia refuses. She tells him that Lily died protecting him, and she'll be damned if she lets him face this evil alone. She's already lost one person she loved to Voldemort. She's not losing another. Vernon, standing behind her with a cricket bat of all things, nods firmly. Dudley, now a tall, strong young man, puts a hand on Harry's shoulder and tells him that's what brothers do. The battle is chaos. Spells fly. Buildings crumble. People Harry loves fall. Fred Weasley still dies, and it's devastating. Remus and Tonks still die, and it's tragic. But the Dursleys survive through a combination of luck, determination, and magical protection from Order members who are moved by their bravery. They're there in the thick of it, proving that love and loyalty aren't limited to those with magic in their blood. When Harry learns he has to die, when he walks into the Forbidden Forest to face Voldemort, he's surrounded by his loved ones in the Resurrection Stone. James, Lily, Sirius, and Remus appear to guide him, but as he walks, he also thinks of the living. He thinks of Petunia, who overcame jealousy to become a mother to him. Vernon, who grew beyond his prejudices to become a father. Dudley, who became a true brother. These thoughts strengthen him as much as the presence of the dead. The confrontation with Voldemort happens as destiny demands. Harry offers himself, dies, and returns. The magic of his sacrifice protects everyone in the battle, the same way his mother's sacrifice once protected him. When he reveals himself alive, when he faces Voldemort in the final duel, he fights not just for the prophecy or revenge, but for the chance to go home, to hug Petunia, to shake Vernon's hand, to punch Dudley's arm and call him an idiot. Voldemort falls. The battle ends. The Death Eaters are defeated, and in the Great Hall, amid the wounded and the grieving, the celebrating and the shocked, Harry Potter collapses into the arms of his family. Not just Ron and Hermione, not just the Weasleys, but the Dursleys too. Petunia is crying and laughing and scolding him all at once. Vernon is suspiciously misty-eyed. Dudley is grinning like an idiot and will dine out on the story of being in the Battle of Hogwarts for the rest of his life. The epilogue of this alternate timeline is different too. 19 years later at Platform 9 3/4, Harry isn't just saying goodbye to his children. He's standing with a larger family. The Dursleys are there, older now. Vernon is retired, a bit more frail but still gruff. Petunia's hair is silver, but her eyes are bright with love. Dudley has kids of his own, Muggle children who are endlessly fascinated by their magical cousin. Harry's children, Albus Severus and James and Lily, have grown up knowing all their grandparents' stories. They know about Great-Aunt Petunia, who took in an orphaned baby and loved him. About Great-Uncle Vernon, who stood against Dementors with a garden rake. About Uncle Dudley, who fought in the Battle of Hogwarts with nothing but courage. They know that family isn't just about blood or magic. It's about choice. It's about love. Albus Severus, nervous about his sorting, gets advice not just from his father, but from Great-Aunt Petunia, too. She tells him that it doesn't matter which house he's in, that what matters is the person he chooses to be. That she once knew a Gryffindor who was the bravest person she ever met, and she regrets every day that she didn't tell her sister that enough. She tells Albus that houses are just houses, but family is forever. The train pulls away and the mixed group of Muggles and wizards wave until it's out of sight. They head out together, planning to meet for dinner later. The Dursleys want to hear all about Harry's latest case at the Auror office. Harry wants to hear about Dudley's promotion at work. It's normal and mundane and absolutely magical in its ordinariness. This, then, is what changes when the Dursleys are kind. Not just Harry's childhood, though, that's transformed. Not just his confidence, though, that's stronger. What changes is the entire message of the story. In the original timeline, Harry triumphs despite an abusive childhood, which is powerful and important. But in this timeline, Harry triumphs because of love, not in spite of its absence. He learns early what Voldemort never could, that love, given freely and without condition, is the most powerful magic of all. The ripple effects extend beyond just Harry. A loved, secure Harry Potter changes how he interacts with everyone. He's more open with his friends, less likely to push them away when he's struggling. He trusts adults more, which means he's more likely to ask for help when he needs it. He's less reckless, not because he's timid, but because he values his life and wants to return to the people who love him. His relationships are healthier. His romance with Ginny develops more naturally, without the complications of Harry's trauma responses. His friendship with Hermione stays platonic and strong without the codependency born of shared childhood pain. His reconciliation with Draco Malfoy in later years is easier because Harry has less anger to work through. The magical world itself changes. The sight of Muggles fighting alongside wizards in the Battle of Hogwarts shifts perspectives. Vernon Dursley, of all people, becomes an unlikely symbol of Muggle-wizard cooperation. After the war, he's interviewed by the Daily Prophet, and his gruff insistence that, "Of course we fought, he's our boy," resonates with people. It challenges prejudices on both sides. Petunia becomes a bridge between worlds. She starts a support group for Muggle parents of magical children, helping them understand and celebrate their children's gifts. She works with Hermione on her Muggle-born advocacy, providing insight into the Muggle perspective. She finally allows herself to be part of the magical world in a meaningful way, honoring Lily's memory by supporting the next generation. Dudley's story is perhaps the most surprising. He becomes an advocate for understanding between Muggles and wizards, speaking at schools about growing up with a wizard brother. He becomes a teacher himself, a gym teacher, and he tells his students about courage, about standing up for family, about how it doesn't matter if someone is different from you. They're still human. They're still worthy of respect and love. The question, what if the Dursleys were kind, turns out to have an answer far more profound than just a happier childhood for one boy. It suggests that cycles of abuse and neglect can be broken, that people can overcome their prejudices and jealousies, that family is defined by love and choice, not just by blood, that the courage to be kind is sometimes the greatest magic of all. In this timeline, Harry Potter still becomes the boy who lived. He still defeats Voldemort. He still saves the wizarding world. But he does it all as a more whole, healthy person. He has a foundation of love that nothing can shake. He knows without doubt that he is wanted, valued, and cherished. And that knowledge makes him not weaker, but infinitely stronger. The scars on his hand from Umbridge's quill still ache in cold weather. The nightmares of Cedric's death still wake him sometimes. The loss of Sirius, Dumbledore, Fred, Remus, and Tonks still hurts. Trauma doesn't disappear just because you're loved, but having people to process that trauma with, having a safe place to return to, having the knowledge that you're not alone, that makes all the difference in the world. Let's dive deeper into specific moments that would transform with this single change. Consider Harry's 4th year and the Yule Ball. In the original timeline, Harry is so awkward and insecure about asking a girl to the ball that he fumbles badly with Cho Chang. But in this timeline, Vernon actually sits Harry down for an uncomfortable but well-meaning talk about asking girls out. It's hilariously awkward because Vernon is not smooth and Petunia keeps interrupting with corrections. But the effort is there. Dudley, who has been dating a girl from his school, actually gives Harry some decent advice about just being himself and not overthinking it. When Harry does work up the courage to ask Cho, and she says she's already going with Cedric, it still stings. Rejection always hurts. But Harry handles it with more grace because he's not carrying years of rejection and worthlessness on his shoulders. He wishes them well, means it genuinely, and then asks someone else without spiraling into self-doubt. The Yule Ball becomes a fun memory instead of a mortifying one. He dances with his date, laughs with Ron about their terrible dancing, and actually enjoys being a teenager at a magical ball. The weight of the tournament tasks feels different too. When Harry faces the Hungarian Horntail in the first task, he's terrified, absolutely paralyzed with fear. But before he goes into the arena, he remembers something Vernon told him before he left for school that year. Vernon, in his gruff way, had said that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified. It was probably the most profound thing Vernon ever said, and he'd immediately gotten embarrassed and changed the subject to sports scores. But Harry carries those words into the arena with him. During the second task, when Harry has to rescue someone from the lake, the hostage taken for him is interesting. In the original timeline, it was Ron, his best friend. In this timeline, where Harry's relationships are spread across more people, it could have been Ron or Hermione or even Sirius. But imagine if the task took Dudley instead. The magic of the task could reach into the Muggle world to take what Harry would miss most, and the sight of his cousin, magically suspended in the lake, would drive Harry to swim faster, dive deeper, fight harder than he ever has. When he surfaces with Dudley, when his cousin wakes up coughing and spluttering and asking what the bloody hell just happened, the crowd goes wild. Because here's Harry Potter, the boy who lived, and the person he'd miss most isn't a powerful wizard or a famous friend, but a Muggle boy. His cousin, his brother. The symbolism isn't lost on anyone. It sends a message about what Harry values, about who he is at his core. The third task, the maze, goes as darkly as it always does. Harry and Cedric reach the cup together, decide to take it together, and are transported to the graveyard. The confrontation with Voldemort, watching Cedric die, being bound and tortured, these horrors unfold just as brutally. But when Harry is forced into a duel, when he and Voldemort's wands connect and the shadowy echoes of Voldemort's victims appear, something additional happens. Harry's parents appear, as they always do, giving him encouragement and strength. But in this timeline, when Harry asks them for help, asks them how to survive this, his mother says something different. She tells him to think of everyone waiting for him. Everyone who loves him. Not just in the magical world, but in the Muggle one too. She tells him that Petunia, her sister, became the mother to Harry that she couldn't be. That she's grateful, that she's proud of both of them. That love comes in many forms, and they're all powerful. This revelation, that his mother knows about the Dursleys' love, that she approves and is grateful, gives Harry a surge of strength. He breaks the connection, grabs Cedric's body, and portkeys back to Hogwarts. The scene that follows is pure chaos. Dumbledore immediately knows something is wrong. Cedric is dead, Harry is injured and traumatized, and he's screaming that Voldemort is back. The immediate aftermath is handled better in this timeline because Harry has more support. When Fudge refuses to believe him, When the Ministry starts its smear campaign, the Dursleys go to war. Vernon, who has connections in the Muggle business world, starts talking to journalists, Muggle journalists. He gives interviews about how his nephew is a hero who has saved the wizarding world multiple times, about how the magical government is trying to discredit a teenager instead of facing the real threat. The Muggle media picks up the story, and while they can't affect magical politics directly, they create enough noise that it becomes harder for the Ministry to completely control the narrative. Petunia writes an opinion piece for a major Muggle newspaper about believing children when they report abuse or danger. She doesn't mention magic explicitly, but anyone who knows the situation understands what she's really talking about. The piece goes viral in the Muggle world. This Muggle attention does something unexpected. It forces some members of the magical community to pay attention. Hermione's parents read Petunia's piece and reach out to her. Other Muggle-born families start organizing. They can't fight Death Eaters, but they can provide safe houses, resources, and a support network that the Ministry can't easily track or infiltrate. The resistance against Voldemort becomes more than just wizards. It becomes a coalition. Harry's 5th year at Hogwarts under Umbridge's regime is still a nightmare, but the DA has more resources. Parents are involved, sending care packages with first aid supplies and non-magical defensive items. Petunia sends Harry a Muggle first aid book with notes in the margins about treating various injuries. It's practical and thoughtful, and Harry shares it with the DA members. Some of the pure-blood students are amazed at what Muggles have figured out about healing without magic. When Umbridge discovers the DA and everything falls apart, when Harry is nearly tortured with the Cruciatus curse in her office, Hermione still tricks her into the forest, where the centaurs take her away. But the follow-up is different. The Board of Governors receives a flood of complaints from both magical and Muggle families. The Dursleys threaten legal action, which is complicated given the magical Muggle jurisdiction issues, but the threat alone causes problems for the Ministry. Fudge, already on shaky ground, realizes that persecuting Harry Potter has become a political nightmare. He can't publicly back down without losing face, but he quietly tells Umbridge to ease off. It's too little, too late, but it means that Harry's final months of 5th year are slightly less hellish than they could have been. The battle at the Department of Mysteries is still a disaster. Harry and his friends still fight Death Eaters, still barely survive. Sirius still dies, and Harry's world still shatters. But the grief process is different. At Sirius's funeral, which happens properly in this timeline because his name was cleared, the Dursleys attend. They sit in the back, uncomfortable in the magical setting but determined to be there for Harry. Vernon, who never met Sirius properly, gives a eulogy that surprises everyone. He talks about how he never understood magic, never wanted to, but he understood love. He understood that Sirius loved Harry like a son, and that Harry loved him like a father. He talks about how family is what you make it, and Sirius was family. It's simple and honest and completely devoid of magical pretension, and it makes half the attendees cry. Dudley approaches Harry after the funeral and tells him something that Harry will remember for the rest of his life. Dudley says that he knows what it's like to lose someone who chose to be your family when they didn't have to. He says that Sirius was brilliant for seeing what everyone in the magical world should have seen from the start, that Harry Potter was worth loving. It's the most emotionally intelligent thing Dudley has ever said, and Harry hugs him and cries on his shoulder while Dudley pats his back awkwardly and holds him up. 6th year brings Dumbledore's private lessons about Horcruxes and Voldemort's past. Harry learns about Tom Riddle's childhood in the orphanage, about a boy who never knew love and grew into a monster because of it. The parallels are obvious. Both Harry and Voldemort were orphans. Both faced hardship. But where Harry was eventually loved, Voldemort never was. The difference in their paths is the difference between being raised by the Dursleys who chose kindness versus growing up without any love at all. This realization is profound for Harry. He understands, perhaps better than the original Harry ever could, how easily he might have turned out differently. If Petunia had left him in the cupboard, if Vernon had continued to see him as a burden, if Dudley had been allowed to bully him relentlessly, who would Harry have become? The thought is terrifying. It makes him appreciate his family even more, and it makes him more determined than ever to stop Voldemort. Because he has something worth fighting for, something Voldemort could never understand. The trip to the cave to retrieve the Horcrux is harrowing. Dumbledore drinks the potion, becomes delirious and weak, and Harry has to fight off Inferi while getting them both to safety. When they return to Hogwarts, the dark mark is glowing above the astronomy tower. Harry finds Dumbledore dying, watches Snape kill him, and feels the foundations of his world crack. But even in this darkest moment, Harry isn't alone. The Order arrives. The students rally, and within hours, through the magical communication network that Dumbledore set up, the news reaches the Dursleys. They can't come to Hogwarts immediately because of the protective wards and the danger, but Petunia sends a Patronus. She learned how, secretly, working with a squib tutor she found through her Muggle-born parent network. Her Patronus is a lily flower, of course, and it carries a simple message. We're here. We love you. Come home when you can. The funeral for Dumbledore is massive. Wizards from around the world attend. Dignitaries give speeches about his greatness. But Harry, sitting in the front row, holds a simple card that Petunia sent. It has a Muggle quote on it about grief and love, and on the back, she's written that Dumbledore gave Harry to them, and for that, she will always be grateful. It's the most profound thank you she could give, and Harry holds on to it throughout the ceremony. The decision to hunt Horcruxes instead of returning for 7th year is difficult. Harry knows it's dangerous, knows he might not survive, but he has to do it. Ron and Hermione commit to coming with him as they always do. But in this timeline, Harry does something the original Harry never could. He tells the Dursleys everything. He sits them down and explains what Horcruxes are, what he has to do, and why he might not come back. The conversation is devastating. Petunia cries and argues that there must be another way. Vernon turns red and starts shouting about how Harry is just 17, still a child, and this is too much to ask of anyone. Dudley sits in shocked silence, processing the fact that his brother is going on a suicide mission. But eventually, once the emotions settle, they accept it. Not happily, not willingly, but they accept it because they understand Harry has to do this. It's who he is. They spend the next few weeks in preparation mode. Vernon, practical to the end, helps Harry plan supplies and logistics. He treats it like a camping expedition because that's the only frame of reference he has. And while it's not quite right, some of the advice is actually useful. Petunia cooks all of Harry's favorite meals, filling the freezer with prepared foods that she insists he take with him. She packs him a bag with Muggle survival supplies, first aid, and a dozen pairs of warm socks. Mothers always worry about socks. Dudley takes a different approach. He's been training in boxing at his school, getting fit and learning to fight. He teaches Harry some basic self-defense moves, the Muggle kind, because you never know when you might not be able to use magic. They spar in the backyard, and Dudley pulls his punches but makes Harry work for every block. He tells Harry that if he's going to fight a war, he needs to know how to throw a punch properly. It's the best way Dudley knows to say he loves his brother and wants him to survive. The night before Harry leaves, the Dursleys have a family dinner. It's quiet and emotional, filled with long pauses and things unsaid. After the meal, they exchange gifts. Vernon gives Harry a compass, a Muggle one, with an inscription on the back, so you can always find your way home. Petunia gives him a photo album, much smaller than the one Hagrid gave him, filled with pictures from Harry's childhood at Privet Drive. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, random Sundays in the backyard, proof that he was loved, that he had a family, that these years mattered. Dudley's gift is the most unexpected. It's his baby blanket, the one he's had since he was born. It's tattered and worn and has been washed 1,000 times. He tells Harry that their mum said it kept him safe when he was little, and maybe it will keep Harry safe now. It's superstitious and sweet and completely Dudley. Harry hugs it to his chest and promises to bring it back. The Horcrux hunt begins in earnest. Harry, Ron, and Hermione disappear into the countryside, constantly moving, searching for the remaining Horcruxes. They break into the Ministry, retrieve the locket, and feel its corrupting influence. The Horcrux shows them their worst fears, but Harry's fears are different in this timeline. It shows him the Dursleys dying because of him. Shows Petunia crying over his corpse and blaming herself for letting him go. Shows Dudley captured and tortured by Death Eaters trying to draw Harry out. These visions are cruel and cutting, but Harry recognizes them as lies more quickly than the original Harry might have. He knows his family doesn't blame him for the war. He knows they're safe in hiding. He destroys the locket with the sword of Gryffindor. and the piece of Voldemort's soul screams as it dies. One more Horcrux down, several more to go. The hunt takes them to Godric's Hollow on Christmas Eve. They visit Harry's parents' graves, and Harry places flowers. But he also takes a moment to send a message through the magical communication network that Hermione set up. It's risky, might be traced, but he does it anyway. He sends a simple "Merry Christmas, I'm okay" to the Dursleys. Petunia, receiving the message in their safe house, cries with relief. It's the best Christmas present she could have asked for. The encounter with Nagini at Bathilda Bagshot's house nearly kills Harry. The snake attacks, and he barely escapes. Hermione saves his life, tending his wounds with a combination of magical healing and the Muggle first aid techniques from the book Petunia sent. Harry, delirious with pain and venom, hallucinates. He sees his mother, but he also sees Petunia. Both women, sisters, both telling him to hold on, to survive, that he's loved. When Harry recovers, he's weaker but more determined than ever. They continue the hunt, retrieving the Hufflepuff cup from Gringotts in a daring break-in that involves a dragon and a very angry goblin. They destroy the cup and the tally continues. They're getting close to the end now. Just a few more Horcruxes and then the final confrontation with Voldemort. The return to Hogwarts for the last battle is chaotic. The school is under Snape's control. Students are being punished for resistance, and everyone is on edge. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione sneak in through the room of requirement, they're immediately swept up in preparations for battle. McGonagall takes control, evacuates the younger students, and prepares the castle's defenses. And then, impossibly, the Dursleys arrive. They shouldn't be here. They should be safe in their hiding place. But Vernon Dursley has never been good at following rules when his family is at stake. They drove through the night, bluffed their way past confused Order members, and demanded entry to the castle. By the time anyone realizes what's happening, they're already inside, and there's no time to send them away. Harry is furious and terrified when he sees them. He yells at them for being stupid, for risking their lives, for coming to a battlefield when they can't even do magic. Vernon yells back that Harry doesn't get to make that choice for them, that they're family, and family sticks together. Petunia, quieter but no less firm, tells Harry that she let Lily go to fight Voldemort alone, and she's not making that mistake again. Dudley just stands there, solid and determined, with a cricket bat in his hands. He tells Harry that he's not leaving, so Harry might as well stop arguing and tell him where he can be useful. It's so absurdly Dudley, bringing a cricket bat to a magical battle, that Harry finds himself laughing through his tears. Fine, they can stay, but they're staying in the safest part of the castle, helping with the wounded, not fighting Death Eaters. The Battle of Hogwarts begins at midnight. Death Eaters assault the castle, and the defenders fight back with everything they have. Spells light up the night sky. Buildings crumble. People fall. Harry is in the thick of it, searching for the last Horcruxes while fighting for his life. He finds the diadem in the room of requirement, destroys it in the fiend fire that Crabbe accidentally unleashes. Another piece of Voldemort's soul gone. In the Great Hall, temporarily serving as a triage center, the Dursleys work alongside Madame Pomfrey and the other healers. Petunia, drawing on her Muggle first aid knowledge, helps treat injuries. Vernon carries wounded students and Order members to safety, his size and strength useful despite his lack of magic. Dudley stands guard, that ridiculous cricket bat at the ready, prepared to defend the wounded from any Death Eater who gets through. At one point, a Death Eater does get through. He blasts open the doors of the Great Hall, wand raised, ready to kill. Dudley doesn't think. He charges, swinging his cricket bat like he's aiming for a boundary, and actually connects with the Death Eater's head. The wizard goes down, stunned, and several Order members quickly bind him before he recovers. Dudley stands there, breathing hard, cricket bat still raised, and realizes he just took down a Death Eater with a piece of sporting equipment. He's going to be insufferable about this for the rest of his life. Harry, fighting his way through the castle, finally confronts Snape in the Shrieking Shack. Nagini attacks. Snape falls, and in his dying moments he gives Harry his memories. The truth about Snape's love for Lily, his true loyalty to Dumbledore, his protection of Harry throughout the years. It's devastating and redemptive and complicated, and Harry has no time to process it. He absorbs the memories and runs back to the castle because there's one more terrible truth he needs to verify. In the Pensive, Harry watches Snape's memories and learns the final, crushing secret. He is a Horcrux. A piece of Voldemort's soul lives inside him, has lived inside him since the night his parents died. As long as Harry lives, Voldemort cannot be killed. For Voldemort to die, Harry must die. It's the cruelest revelation imaginable. Everything he's fought for, survived for, lived for, comes down to this. He has to give up his life. Harry walks through the castle in a daze. Students are fighting, dying, giving everything to hold off Voldemort's forces. And he's about to render all their sacrifices meaningless by surrendering. But it's the only way. The prophecy was clear. Neither can live while the other survives. One of them has to die, and it's going to be Harry. He passes the Great Hall and sees the Dursleys through the doorway. Petunia is tending to an injured student, her hands steady and sure. Vernon is helping move rubble to clear a path for evacuees. Dudley is sitting with a young first-year who's crying, offering awkward but genuine comfort. They came here for him. They've always been there for him. And now he has to leave them. Harry can't stop to say goodbye. If he does, he'll lose his courage. Instead, he pulls out a piece of parchment and writes a quick note. To Petunia, Vernon, and Dudley, thank you for everything. Thank you for loving me. I'm sorry. Tell everyone I'm sorry. I love you. He hands the note to a passing order member with instructions to deliver it if he doesn't return, and then he walks on toward the Forbidden Forest, toward his death. He opens the snitch that Dumbledore left him, the one inscribed with, I open at the close. Inside is the resurrection stone. He turns it 3 times, and the dead appear. His parents, Sirius, Remus. They walk with him, offering comfort and courage. They tell him it doesn't hurt, that it's quick, that he's so brave. His mother tells him she's proud of him, that both she and Petunia are proud, that he's been loved by 2 families, magical and muggle, and that love will live on after he's gone. Harry steps into the clearing where Voldemort waits. He faces the Dark Lord with his head held high. He doesn't fight, doesn't raise his wand. He simply accepts what must happen. Voldemort speaks the killing curse. Green light fills Harry's vision, and he falls into darkness, ready for the end, expecting the end, deserving some peace after everything he's endured. But death has other plans. Harry wakes in a strange, ethereal version of King's Cross Station. Dumbledore is there, explaining the truth. Because Harry willingly sacrificed himself because he went to his death without fighting, the piece of Voldemort's soul inside him is destroyed. But Harry is not. He has a choice. He can move on to death, or he can return to life, to the battle, to his family. It's not really a choice. Harry has people to live for. He has people who love him and need him. He has a family waiting in that castle, muggle and magical, and he'll be damned if he lets them mourn him when he can still fight. He chooses to return, and Dumbledore smiles like he knew Harry would make that choice all along. Because Harry Potter, raised with love, taught his own worth, knows that his life matters, that he's not just a weapon or a tool or a sacrifice. He's a person, and people are worth saving, including himself. Harry returns to his body. He lies still, playing dead, while Voldemort forces Narcissa Malfoy to check if he's alive. She, in a moment of mercy and maternal understanding, lies and says he's dead. Voldemort believes he's won. He marches to the castle with Harry's supposedly dead body, ready to demand surrender. The scene at the castle is horrific. Voldemort's forces display Harry's body, and the defenders despair. Hagrid, forced to carry Harry, is crying openly. The students and order members look broken, and in the Great Hall, when the news reaches the Dursleys, Petunia collapses. Vernon catches her, his own face ashen. Dudley makes a sound like a wounded animal and starts moving toward the entrance, ready to fight Voldemort with his bare hands if necessary. But before anyone can react, before Voldemort can deliver his victory speech, Harry moves. He drops from Hagrid's arms, reveals himself alive, and the battle explodes back into chaos. Harry and Voldemort duel in the courtyard, surrounded by fighting, watched by everyone. The wands connect, the spells collide, and finally, Harry's disarming charm overpowers Voldemort's killing curse. The Dark Lord dies. The Elder Wand, recognizing Harry as its true master, refuses to kill him and turns the curse back on its caster. Voldemort falls, mortal and defeated, and his body hits the ground like the empty shell it always was. The Death Eaters see their leader fall and break. Some flee, some surrender, some fight to the bitter end. But it doesn't matter. The war is over. Voldemort is dead, and Harry Potter is alive. The aftermath is chaos. People are crying, celebrating, mourning their dead. Harry stands in the center of it all, exhausted and overwhelmed. And then Dudley crashes into him, nearly knocking him over with the force of his hug. He's followed quickly by Petunia and Vernon, who hold Harry between them like they'll never let go. They're crying, all of them, even Vernon, who probably hasn't cried since his own father's funeral. The image of the boy who lived, held up by his Muggle family while the wizarding world celebrates around them, becomes iconic. Rita Skeeter writes about it extensively, and for once, her article is actually touching and mostly true. She describes how love, not magic, was the true force that defeated Voldemort. How a family that chose to love a child, not their own, helped shape the hero who saved them all. The funerals come next. Too many of them. Fred Weasley, brilliant and funny and far too young. Remus Lupin and Nymphadora Tonks, leaving behind an orphaned son. Colin Creevey, who never stopped believing in Harry. Lavender Brown, whose death was senseless and cruel. And dozens more, students and order members and random people who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Dursleys attend all the funerals they can, paying their respects to people they never met, but who died fighting alongside Harry. Vernon, uncomfortable with so much death, nevertheless stands solemn and respectful at each service. Petunia brings flowers and speaks kindly to grieving families. Dudley helps however he can, carrying things, offering support, being a steady presence. The rebuilding of Hogwarts takes months. Students return to finish their education. Harry, Ron, and Hermione complete their 7th year, taking their new teas and trying to find some normalcy after the war. It's strange and difficult and often painful, but they manage. They have each other, and they have families who support them, and slowly, they heal. Harry's career choice surprises some people. He becomes an Auror, yes, hunting down the remaining Death Eaters and working to make the wizarding world safer. But he also works with Hermione on her Muggle-Wizard Relations Office, helping to bridge the gap between the two worlds. He gives talks at schools, both magical and Muggle, about the importance of understanding and tolerance, and every summer, without fail, Harry returns to Privet Drive. Not because he has to, not because of blood wards or protection spells, because it's home. Because the Dursleys are his family, and you visit family. The neighbors who watched Harry grow up see him return each year and wave hello. Some of them know he's a wizard now. Word got out after the war, as it always does. But in this timeline, the reveal wasn't accompanied by Harry's accusations of abuse or trauma. It was just, oh, the Potter boy is magical. How interesting. The Dursleys must be so proud. And they are. Vernon brags about Harry at work, carefully, to people who know about magic. He tells them about his nephew, the Auror, who helped rebuild the wizarding world after the war. Petunia keeps every newspaper clipping that mentions Harry, even the critical ones, in a scrapbook. She corresponds regularly with Hermione's parents, with the Weasleys, with various members of the magical community. She becomes a fixture at King's Cross every September, helping nervous Muggle parents send their magical children off to Hogwarts. Dudley's life takes an interesting turn. He meets a girl, a Muggle-born witch named Rachel, who finds his story about fighting Death Eaters with a cricket bat endlessly amusing. They fall in love, get married, and have 2 children. One of them, impossibly, shows signs of magic at age 7. Turns out, spending so much time around Harry, living in a house protected by blood magic, being present at the Battle of Hogwarts, it all did something to Dudley's latent magical ability. He's still not a wizard himself, but his son is. When Dudley's son gets his Hogwarts letter, the family celebrates. Harry is there, of course, and he takes his nephew to Diagon Alley personally. The boy, named Vernon after his grandfather but called V to avoid confusion, is sorted into Hufflepuff. He's kind and loyal and brave in the way that matters most. He's nothing like Draco Malfoy, nothing like the bullies who made Harry's early life hard. He's proof that the cycle has truly been broken, that the Dursley family tree has grown a new branch, one that includes magic without fear or resentment. Harry's own children, when they come along, grow up with an extended family that spans both worlds. They know their Muggle grandparents, great-aunt and great-uncle. They celebrate Christmas at Privet Drive, hunt for Easter eggs in the backyard where Harry and Dudley played as children. They learn Muggle technology and magical spells with equal enthusiasm. They understand from the very beginning that love is love and family is family, regardless of magic. Albus Severus Potter, the middle child, the one who worries about his sorting, gets advice from everyone. Harry tells him that the sorting hat takes your choice into account. Hermione reminds him that all the houses are good. Ron jokes that as long as he's not in Slytherin, and then immediately backtracks when Hermione elbows him. But it's Great Aunt Petunia's advice that sticks with Albus. She sits him down in the kitchen at Privet Drive, the same kitchen where she once tried to dye Dudley's old uniforms for Harry to wear, the same kitchen where she later made Harry's favorite birthday cakes and helped him with homework. She tells Albus about his grandmother Lily, about how brave she was, how kind, how powerful. She tells him about the jealousy she felt, the resentment, and how she almost let it ruin her relationship with Harry. She tells Albus that houses are just labels, just groupings, and what matters is the person you choose to be within that house. She tells him that his grandmother was a Gryffindor, but she was also smart enough for Ravenclaw, cunning enough for Slytherin, and loyal enough for Hufflepuff. That people are more than one thing, and reducing them to a house colors is foolish. That wherever he ends up, he'll be brilliant and loved. Albus hugs her, this elderly woman who chose to love his father when she could have chosen hate, and thanks her. When he gets to Hogwarts, when the sorting hat is placed on his head, he thinks about her words. He thinks about his father, sorted into Gryffindor but brave in ways that had nothing to do with his house. He thinks about family and love and choice. The hat deliberates between Slytherin and Gryffindor, sees his ambition and cunning, but also his courage and determination. In the end, it calls out Slytherin, and Albus joins the green and silver table with his head held high. Because here's the thing about this alternate timeline. Harry's influence, his example of being loved by Muggles and wizards alike, has changed the wizarding world. Slytherin House is no longer automatically associated with dark wizards. The reforms that Hermione fought for with Harry's support have reshaped Hogwarts. Inter-house cooperation is encouraged. Blood purity rhetoric is challenged immediately. Muggle studies becomes a core requirement, taught by Petunia Dursley herself, who volunteers as a guest lecturer to share the Muggle perspective. The sight of Harry Potter, hero of the wizarding world, hugging his Slytherin son with pride and love sends a message that houses don't define you, that your choices matter more than your circumstances, that love, wherever it comes from, is worth cherishing. The students of Hogwarts watching this learn these lessons. They carry them forward. The wizarding world slowly but steadily becomes more integrated with the Muggle one. Not completely. There are still secrets, still separations necessary for safety and practicality, but the wall between the two worlds becomes more permeable. Muggle-born students aren't seen as lesser. Squibs aren't hidden away in shame. Wizards who choose to live in the Muggle world aren't considered blood traitors. And at the center of this change, this slow revolution of acceptance and love, is Harry Potter and his family. Magical and Muggle, Gryffindor and Slytherin, pureblood and Muggle-born, all of them proof that love doesn't care about categories or labels or arbitrary divisions. Love just is, and it's enough. Years later, decades later, when Harry is old and his children are grown with children of their own, he sits in the backyard at Privet Drive with Petunia. She's elderly now, fragile, her time limited, but her mind is sharp and her heart is full. They watch the grandchildren play, magical and Muggle, all together without caring about the difference. Petunia tells Harry that she's sorry. Sorry for the years she wasted resenting Lily. Sorry for almost making the same mistake with him. Sorry that it took her sister's death to wake her up and choose love. Harry, holding her hand, tells her there's nothing to forgive. She saved him. She loved him. She gave him a childhood, a family, a foundation. Without her, he would have been a different person. Maybe a broken one, definitely a sadder one. She asks him if he thinks Lily would have approved, would have been happy with how things turned out. Harry squeezes her hand and tells her yes, absolutely yes, that his mother's greatest wish was for him to be loved and safe and happy. That Petunia gave him all those things. That wherever Lily is, she's grateful to her sister for doing what she couldn't, for raising her son with kindness and care. Petunia cries, and Harry cries with her, and they sit in the fading sunlight and remember. They remember the scared little boy left on a doorstep, the choice to pick him up and bring him inside, the first birthday party, the first day of school, the first accidental magic, the Hogwarts letter, the battles and the fear and the triumph, all of it, every moment shaped by that single choice to be kind. When Petunia passes, peacefully in her sleep a few months later, the funeral is attended by hundreds. Wizards and muggles, students and teachers, order members and random people whose lives she touched through her advocacy work. They remember her not as the bitter, jealous woman she almost became, but as the loving aunt who chose to be better. As the woman who raised Harry Potter and, in doing so, helped save the wizarding world. Harry, giving the eulogy, tells the story of November 1st, 1981. He describes the baby on the doorstep, the letter, the choice Petunia made. He thanks her, publicly and tearfully, for choosing love, for giving him a home, for being the mother he needed. And he thanks Lily, too, his birth mother, for the ultimate sacrifice, but also for having a sister brave enough to overcome her own pain and love in her place. That's the legacy of this timeline. That's what changes when the Dursleys are kind. Not just Harry's personal happiness, though that matters. Not just his confidence and mental health, though those are significant. What changes is the entire message of the story. It becomes a narrative about how love can overcome jealousy, how kindness can break cycles of pain, how a single choice made in a moment of grief can ripple outward and change the world. Because here's the truth that this alternate timeline reveals. We all have that choice. Every single day we can choose to be kind or cruel, to build people up or tear them down, to love or to resent. The Dursleys in the original timeline chose poorly. They let their fears and prejudices control them. They hurt a child who deserved better. And while Harry survived and thrived despite them, imagine how much less pain he would have endured if they'd just been kind. That's the real magic in this story. Not the wands or the spells or the fantastic beasts. The real magic is the choice to love when it would be easier to hate. The choice to see a child's potential instead of their burden. The choice to overcome our own pain and trauma to ensure that the next generation doesn't inherit it. That's the magic that defeats Voldemort. That's the magic that saves Harry. That's the magic that could save us all. So what if the Dursleys were kind? Harry still defeats Voldemort, but he does it as a whole person with a support system and a family. The wizarding world still survives, but it emerges more integrated with the Muggle world, more accepting, more loving. And one boy who could have been broken by cruelty instead grows strong through kindness. That's the answer. That's what changes everything and nothing. The plot points remain similar, but the emotional journey is completely different. And maybe that's the most important change of all, because stories aren't just about what happens. They're about how we feel about what happens. And a Harry Potter who was loved from the beginning is a completely different story. One that's just as powerful, just as meaningful, but infinitely more hopeful. In the end, the question isn't really about the Dursleys at all. It's about us, about the choices we make and the people we become because of them, about whether we let our pain turn us cruel or whether we transform it into empathy and love. The Dursleys in this timeline chose the latter, and in doing so, they became heroes in their own right. Not magical heroes who defeat dark wizards, but the everyday heroes who love children, who overcome their flaws, who choose kindness even when it's hard. That's the kind of magic that exists in our world too. The kind we can all perform every single day. The kind that might not get us into history books, but that changes lives nonetheless. The kind that matters most of all. Because at the end of the day, at the end of all stories, it's love that wins. It's always been love. And the Dursleys, against all odds and expectations, learned that lesson and taught it to the boy who saved the world. And Harry, standing at platform 9 3/4 decades later, watching his grandchildren board the Hogwarts Express, understands this completely. He is the boy who lived, yes. The chosen one, the wizard who defeated Voldemort. But more than any of that, he is Harry Potter, son of Lily and James, nephew of Petunia and Vernon, brother of Dudley, loved by two families, magical and Muggle, shaped by kindness, saved by love, and that, more than any prophecy or destiny or magical power, is what makes him truly extraordinary.